Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Just over a month after announcing a new trade framework with India, the United States has opened a fresh investigation into what it calls unfair trade practices by 16 major economies, which includes India, China, the European Union, and Japan. Now, the move could pave the way for new tariffs on imports from these countries as early as this summer, potentially complicating the fragile trade detente that Washington and New Delhi appeared to reach in February. Now, the investigation is being launched under Section 301 of the US Trade Act of 1974, a powerful trade enforcement mechanism that Washington has previously used to impose sweeping tariffs on China. Now, while the probe does not immediately trigger tariffs, it creates the legal pathway for new duties depending on the outcome of the investigation. Now, why has US launched this probe? Just to give a little perspective to the viewers, and then we head straight into the conversation with our special guest this evening. Now, the immediate trigger is a recent US Supreme Court ruling that struck down a central part of President Donald Trump's tariff program, weakening Washington's leverage in ongoing trade negotiations. Now, the court ruled that the administration had exceeded its authority when it imposed sweeping tariffs under emergency economic powers. Now, to maintain pressure on trading partners, the White House imposed a temporary 10% tariff on imports from all countries for 150 days under a different law. Now, that measure expires in July. The new investigation appears designed to create a more durable legal foundation for tariffs before that headline. And regarding that, US Trade Representative Jamison Greer said that the probe will examine whether certain economies have structural excess manufacturing capacity that distorts the global trade. And Washington will look at the following indicators, and I'm just reading them one by one. That what are those indicators? Persistent trade subsidies, state-owned enterprise activity, subsidized lending, suppressed wages, weak labor or environmental standards, currency practices. And if such practices are found to harm the US industries, the administration could respond with country-specific tariffs or other trade restrictions. Now, then the next question is that why is India on the list? India's inclusion is significant because it comes barely a month after the two countries unveiled a framework for an interim bilateral trade agreement. The February understanding between US President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi was intended to lay the groundwork for a broader India-US bilateral trade agreement. And under that framework, India has agreed to reduce or eliminate tariffs on several US industrial and agricultural products. So why this additional burden on India? So we'll try and discuss this in the light of this West Asia crisis. And what can India really do? Is it weaponizing trade? Is it an additional burden? How could India now leverage its position? Because it's just not India. There are several nations who will be undergoing this similar sort of a process. Joining me this evening is former former Foreign Affairs Minister and veteran Congress leader Salman Khurshid. So thank you so much for joining. And Mr. Khurshid is also the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Department of Congress. So thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on the program. How would you see this step of US probing countries like India and several others for unfair trade practices and also for forced labor? That's what we are told.
Well, it's very alarming, frankly. This has come when we are being told, and we are only being told, we haven't been shown that there is a formal agreement which is envisaged as far as the trade matter is concerned. And of course, there was relief from the very high tariffs that he had tried to impose, that President Trump had tried to impose. There was relief. But clearly, the indication is that there is no special place for India as far as Mr. Modi's friend, Mr. Trump, is concerned. There's no special place for India. There are no special concessions. But of the list that you've just read out, I can only say that we keep very good company. I mean, the kind of countries that are mentioned it certainly means that we keep very good company. Now, these are some very fundamental things in terms of trade policy, foreign policy that governments governments along the world will have to consider, but particularly because we are concerned about our government and our people, we obviously are to take it very, very seriously, because it's like giving with one hand and taking away with another. I mean, what kind of relationship do we have? What transparency is there? What consideration is there? What a sense of being engaged with a friend is there? These are all very, very big questions. And where is the pressure being placed? Is the pressure being placed on us in trade in order to achieve something else somewhere else, etc.? These are questions that come galore, and I believe that the government will have to be very, very careful as it sort of negotiates and engages with the United States, because everything is opaque, everything is unclear, and it's sort of on demand. Like they just want to tell you that we demand this, and you must fall in line and do as we tell you. I think this is absolutely disastrous. It's disastrous to have a friendship of that kind.
But Mr. Khurshid, I mean, I really don't understand. I'm rather confused about the kind of stand which India can take. Will India take a stand on this? Because so far, India has remained silent on crucial issues when they should have spoken, when they should have spelt out a stand. But in this particular case, do you think that India has enough room to negotiate or leverage its position?
Well, see, you when you face this sort of opposition from anyone, you need to be sure about your own facts. You need to be sure about your own economic standing, uh, both in terms of what we have and what we need to prepare in case of a very bad situation. So, the worst kind of situation that we may have to face, we must prepare the country for it. Have we prepared the country? We are telling the country that all is well. We are telling the country that we are ruling the world, that we are Vishwa Gurus, and that we will decide what will happen in the world. Now, that is not true. That is not correct, and that will not happen. Certainly not in a hurry. And now we don't even know, frankly, we don't even know ultimately where does Russia stand, where does China stand. One thing is clear that America is a little careful about pushing Russia and pushing China, but we don't fall in that category as we should, and possibly not fall in that category because we haven't played footsie with them as far as China is concerned entirely, and we can't and we shouldn't. So if we have to maintain our autonomy and our choice of what we need to do in foreign policy and the domestic policy, we need to keep our options open. But the United States is trying to close our options. They show us a little carrot, and then they just want to close all options for us. Now, surviving for a carrot alone is not good enough. And as you just said, that there is a very loud silence that you have seen from India in the recent weeks, that something dramatic happens in the world, and something not just dramatic but something lethal happens in the world, and we keep quiet, and we are told that there are 3 telephone calls that we've made. What is India's voice? Is India's voice heard anywhere in the world? That's the question I ask, and that's the question that I believe everybody in parliament who is not with the government, who is in the opposition, would want to have an answer on. But they're not even willing to have a debate on all this. If there was a debate on all this in parliament, at least something would become clear.
I would want to come to now the West Asia crisis. Now, today also we saw in Parliament that the opposition demanded a discussion on this West Asia crisis, and of course the crisis arising out of this entire Iran war. The LPG shortage, whether it's a glass industry, whether it's a steel making industry, whether it's things like paints, diapers, polythenes, everything is getting impacted. Now, do you see a scenario where the normal functioning of the Indian household will get impacted, because we don't see any signs of this war coming to an end, and no one has answers to that?
Well, that is worrisome. That's worrisome. I believe that many of the signs that we see of stress in the marketplace are signs that are being that are more in anticipation and in terms of people reacting too early, too soon. But down the line, these things will become some things that we need to deal with. And how do we deal with them? The question is, you need to have some backup plans. Does the government have any backup plans? There are no backup plans. I don't see any backup plans. The issue about gas cylinders is already becoming a problem. We hear of restaurants closing down. We hear of places using wood, as though we don't have enough trouble with pollution in this country, that we are now going to fall back by begin to use wood cookers and so on and so forth. So I think it's just frightening to think of how much worse it can get, and how ill prepared we seem to be, and so ill prepared that we remain. We were ill prepared when COVID happened, and our party and our party leadership kept emphasizing that you've got to be prepared, you've got to be ready. Something awful, something terrible can happen, and we did nothing. We did absolutely nothing. We did a little bit, but too little, too late, etc. Now, I think the same situation is going to arise now. We have no idea how soon the conflict will end, and in what manner it will end, and what will be the consequences of wherever it ends and however it ends. So I would just say that there's great uncertainty, and anything that is said would only add to the uncertainty, which we certainly don't want to be guilty of. We would want to reassure the country, provided we were shared with some information was given to us by the government. We would want to reassure the country that ultimately it will be tough, but we will get through. We must get through, we must prevail. But how do you do it when there is not a shred of evidence or information being made available to you in Parliament or outside Parliament?